Hey there, Heather, ho there, Chef Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Cutter live stream. I know a lot of you people will be like, well, this is a sports live stream, right? Big major sports event happening. Well, you can call this, I don't know if this is a sport or not a sport. A lot of people say pro wrestling is not a sport. Don't you just hate when it just doesn't agree with you? But anyway, is pro wrestling really a sport? Well, kind of yes, kind of no. Because Vince McMahon basically made pro wrestling scripted on the count that he didn't have to pay the damn taxes on state taxes on stuff like the state commissions, sports commissions, and all that. But nevertheless, yeah, I know I have an awful glare on my glasses. But anyway, live from the bunker, the Cutter bunker in Kitchener. This is the Hulk Hogan is dead video. And of course, this is huge because, you know, I've had there's been a lot of sports people who have died just this year, just in 2025. Like 2020 was one of the worst years for sports deaths. But 2025, I mean, what do you look at? You have Bob Uecker, who was with the Brewers for baseball broadcasting from 1971 until 2024, 53 years. I'm not only 4 years old. So, like, Bob Uecker had a long career. He was even in the major leagues. He even won a World Series ring with the 64 Cardinals. He wasn't the main guy, but who the hell cares? You have Mike Lang, who is a big Pittsburgh Penguins play-by-play icon. Hey, shits and scars. Hey, mate, Axel like a rented mule. You have Junior Bridgman, who, was not one of the greatest NBA players for the Milwaukee Bucks and the University of Louisville, but dude was an entrepreneur in Louisville. Like, he owned so many Louisville fast food operations. That was amazing. You have George Foreman. Big George Foreman died this year, March 21st. Iconic boxing champion and all that. Dude was 45 when he beat Michael Moore for the heavyweight championship. It's happened. It has happened. November 4th, 1994. My mom was actually turning 43 that year, that day. Greg Millen, who Canadian Hockey Night in Canada fans know about. He was a great commentator and former goalie. He was a commentator for many years alongside Chris Cuthbert. Steve Mongo McMichael died. He was part of the Bears' great defense in 1985. He was on WCW. He was a color commentator the same year as like Hulk Hogan was in WCW. You have Chet Lemon, like 1984 Tigers when they were dominant, 35-5 off from had a 35-5 start. Like the Jays were second in the AL East that year. They just couldn't catch Detroit. You have Jim Marshall, runaway Jim Marshall. But dude had over 280 consecutive games. In a 17-game season, you have to have 10 17-game things all together consecutive. That's 170. That's not even close to Marshall. You have one of the best Canadian relief pitchers in baseball history, Ron Taylor, part of the 64 Cardinals and the 69 Miracle Mets. You have Dave the Cobra Parker, who's supposed to be who's inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame on Sunday. He would have been there, but he died. He died a month short of being inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And yes, he was a Blue Jay for 15 games. Alex Delvecchio, icon with the Detroit Red Wings, part of the production line. Ted Lindsay's gone. Gordie Howe is gone. But Delvecchio was the longest serving guy. And he lasted 1,500 games with the Red Wings in two decades. And Diogo Jota died July the 3rd. He died 3 weeks ago. And he was just coming off a Premier League championship in 25 and a Nations League with Portugal. And he died in a car accident. And then Jim Clancy 10 days ago, part of the original Blue Jays. So, I know I'm rambling on and on, but the fact is that, 2025 has been a shitty year for sports stats and all that. And we're not even 7 months in. Nevertheless, so you want me to talk about Hulk Hogan, and I will. So I was actually at work. I was playing WWE Champions on mobile, which I'll show you my phone and all that. Like, see, WWE Champions. And WWE Champions is the big match 3 when you have matches and then you do the match 3 like Bejeweled or Candy Crush and all that to try to make moves and beat wrestlers and then level your wrestlers up and all that. So, well, I'll show you once I get into the app. All my WWE Champions Hulk Hogan ones and all that. It's kind of cool. It's a cool match 3 game, and you really don't have to pay money for it. A lot of the great players have to, like, they shell out like $100 for like to upgrade people and all that. I don't do that. I just basically play it as it is. I mean, I'm not the best in the world. I don't care. Okay, so I'm gonna go to roster and the search bar, HULK. Okay. So as it is, that yeah, you got these guys. I hate the glare and all that, but yeah, Hulk Hogan, all that. I have like see Santa Hogan and all that. You get all these great Hulk Hogan, like these people, like you give them moves and all that that you can use and all that and level up your wrestler and all that. So yeah, I'm on others, but I have to have a better Hulk Hogan one. No, no, jeez. I thought I had a Hulk Hogan one. I guess my name H. Sorry, like yeah, you're like Cutter. You need to be more Jake. Oh yeah, one Hulk Hogan. I thought I had another Hulk Hogan. I only have the Santa Hogan. I didn't know that. Huh, fuck. I only have one Hulk Hogan. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun game to play and all that. But yeah, I gotta talk about my memories about Hulk Hogan. Now you're thinking, well, Jeff, you're a sports guy, like you know your baseball, basketball, football, hockey, golf, sumo, and all that crap. Are you a wrestling fan? I'm like, yeah, I was a wrestling fan. I remember back in the day when Channel 11, of course, I'm Canadian, I'm from Southern Ontario, so basically that's what I'm, Channel 11, CHCH, would have WWF Cavalcade, which I found out was the Canadian name of WWF Superstars. They would do Superstars in the United States, but in Canada, they call it Cavalcade and would have Billy Red Lions do like match card stuff for the Canadians and all that. We had like WWF updates and all that, but yeah, Hulk Hogan was a big thing and all that. I yeah, like Hulk Hogan was big in wrestling and all that in the 90s and all that. But yeah, like yeah, I remember watching that stuff. And then, you know, I stopped watching wrestling for a while until the 2000s when I moved to Kitchener to go to school and all that, and I found WWE one day, and then you know got myself invested. And Hulk Hogan was coming back in June 2005 to team up with John Cena and Shawn Michaels in that 6-man tag against what is it, Christian, Jericho, and Tyson Tomko. But yeah, the mad pop when Hulk Hogan came out, and I remembered Hulk Hogan and all that. It was amazing to see him 20 years prior. Like this was 20 years and a month ago. And then, Hulk did his magic. And then Shawn Michaels on the 4th of July freaking turncoated on Hogan, switching music to him. And it was like, what the heck? Are you crazy? But yeah, Shawn doing that was just shocking because, Hulk came back as a good guy. Now, of course, this is my experiences and all that. Like when I talk about Hulk Hogan's career, I'll talk about it more in the later stages. But the fact is, I'm going to talk about my personal stuff first. So the fact of the matter is that, the thing is, Yeah, so I'm just. So yeah, I'm just typing in the chat for everyone. Like you won't see it live, but you'll see it. So like I'm gonna probably be doing a top 10 Hulk Hogan thing on Saturday. I don't know if it'll be live action or just basically like some stuff. Bill's I think Bill's trying to ding me and all that. But the fact of the matter is that yeah, it's kind of huge and all that. But yeah, Hulk and then seeing HBK want to fight Hulk Hogan and all that. Of course, I didn't have the rights to watch the pay per view and all that. But yeah, seeing Hulk Hogan come in as a good guy, saving everyone. When was he a bad guy? When in my features, no. And then 2006 when he had that match with Randy Orton, Saturday night's main event. I got to watch Saturday night's main event because it's on the normal channels. It was on City TV, like Channel 31 in Canada, like the Toronto network. They were carrying those ones. But yeah, I got to see that, and then RKOing him, and then having a match at SummerSlam with him. Yeah, Hogan was pretty decent and all that. You got to see his birthday celebrations with some of the legends he faced, and then Brock Lesnar basically broke it up saying, "Party's over, Grandpa." But the fact of the matter is that, Hulk was huge. And then on Netflix, January 2025, my aunt has the Netflix account. I don't. But basically, he was saying all this stuff for like 30 seconds, and then all of a effing sudden, everyone just booed the crap out of him. So yeah, like he was controversial. 10 years ago, he made that racist remark on a sex tape. It's like, why would you want to watch a sex tape? But then he does those racist rants. And I remember WWE Network coming to Canada in 2015. I subscribed to it for my aunt's benefit because she's a big wrestling fan, like yours truly. But she's a bigger wrestling fan than I am. I mean, heck, she even watches AEW stuff, and I'm like, no way I'm watching AEW. Like, those guys are deserters. Like Daniel Bryan, Edge, and Christian. They're such deserters. They aren't in the WWE video games. And I would love to have had, like, those guys part of the WWE 2K24 40 Years of WrestleMania thing. We can't have it because Daniel Bryan is a deserter, and we can't have, like, a Daniel Bryan, Batista, Randy Orton stuff. But the fact is that, it's huge. And, like, for the benefit of everyone, like, Hulk was persona non grata. Like, WWE Network in 2015 was going to have, like, Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling on, like, every week. And it was like, wow, great. Because I had the DVD bootleg. Like, I had, like, what is it, an Etsy version of Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling that had all the episodes on it. And I, like, watched the crap out of it. I feel like I still have it, but I don't. But the fact is that, Hulk Hogan was an icon. And then his cartoon show was going to be on WWE Network. But thanks to that racist rant, poof, we never got to see it. So, yeah, my personal appearances and all that. But the fact of the matter is, let's talk about the Hulk Hogan stuff and all that. So Hulk was, he's 71 when he passed away. He died he was born in 1953, right? I know I have the Wikipedia page up on the channel, but because I'm doing a Hulk Hogan tribute thing to him using my PC game, Tommy Fogel's Wrestling Finest, doing a tag team match and all that. We're going to see a pair of tag teams that Hulk Hogan was involved in. But the fact is that, yeah, and I'll talk about the Wikipedia board. But the fact is that, he was around in the 50s. He started wrestling. People forget that Hulk Hogan was wrestling in the WWF in 1979. Like, everyone knows about his Hulkamania stuff in the 80s, but he was in WWF in 1979. He was a heel. Classy Freddie Blassie was his manager, and he was a heel. He even fought Andre the Giant in 1980. People forget that when Hulk faced Andre in WrestleMania 3, this was not the first time. It was like, I don't know how many times. But yeah, Hulk faced Andre in a showdown they called the Showdown at Shea, because Shea Stadium was going to host a wrestling thing. And the main event was in a steel cage, Larry Sabisco versus Bruno Sammartino. But yeah, Hulk faced Andre at Shea Stadium, and Hulk actually slammed Andre lost the match, but because like Andre went on that 15-year unbeaten streak. But the fact is that, Hulk and Andre had a rivalry in the 80s. They had some matches in Japan, which Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. Yeah, but Hulk basically burned his bridges with Vincent K. McMahon. Vince McMahon is the Vince McMahon we all know today is Vincent J. McMahon. But this is Vincent K. McMahon, the elder, Vince the elder, if you will. He was upset that Hulk Hogan was asked to be part of Rocky 3 and Thunder Lips. And he went off to do Rocky 3 as Thunder Lips, and Vincent K. McMahon fired him. And then after Hulk did Rocky 3, then in the AWA, he was a good guy. He was supposed to be a champion, but Vern Gagne kind of took it away from him and gave it to, was it Stan Hansen? But the fact of the matter was that it was pathetic. He basically built Hulk Hogan up to be this big guy and who would be rivaling the WWF stars like Bob Backlund. But the fact of the matter is that he screwed Hulk Hogan. Hogan was so upset, he left the AWA. But thankfully, the WWF allowed it because Vincent J. McMahon, Vince the Younger, if you will, actually said, you know what? I want this guy. I want Hulk Hogan. And built things around Hulk being back in the WWE, becoming a good guy instead of being a heel like he was in his earlier run. And then, Hulk was thrust January 23rd, was it? 1984? Yeah, he was thrust in the spotlight because Bob Backlund had just lost the WWF Championship to Iron Sheik. And then he was supposed to face Sheik in a rematch, but he got sick and Hulk was put in his place. And the Iron Sheik fought Hulk Hogan. There is a thankfully censored moment in that match because when the Iron Sheik does his camel clutch, I hope that the footage doesn't show, but it, like the original footage, didn't do it much justice. But anyway, Hulk got out of the camel clutch, like the backbreaker and all that, and then hit Sheik back first into the ring post, and then a couple of moves, and then the leg drop later, poof, game over, and Hulk Hogan was the WWF champion. And for 4 years, he was WWF champion, fighting a lot of people. Like, he was fighting off Roddy Piper when Piper was in his heel face, and one of the best heels, I must say. WrestleMania 1, I mean, he and Mr. T were a tag team, and he fought, Roddy Piper and and Paul Orndorff. And, Cowboy Bob Orton was in the heels corner, whereas Jimmy Superfly Snuka was in the good guys corner. But the fact of the matter was Hogan and T won WrestleMania 1 thanks to Orton's stupidity. But the fact is the buildup was huge. Like, WrestleMania 1 was a massive gamble. And everyone knows that. If you're a wrestling fan, you know damn well. But the fact of the matter about WrestleMania 1 was that, it's a good feeling. But Hogan and T went through a lot of pop culture things. They were on Hot Properties on HBO with Richard Belzer. And unfortunately, the research of the Belzer incident is big because Hulk was told to, Richard Belzer wanted Hulk to put him in the camel clutch, but that's not Hulk's move. And Hulk decided to give him a simple wrestling move, a chin lock. Unfortunately, Hulk screwed up with the chin lock, or Belzer screwed up, and Belzer collapsed on the floor. He had like a concussion. He did win some money off the WWF and bought a place in France. He nicknamed Shea Hogan. But, that almost derailed everything with WrestleMania 1 because of the Belzer incident. I mean, Hulk and Mr. T were actually hosting Saturday Night Live the night before WrestleMania 1. But thankfully, though, Hogan and T did their job and won the match. And then Hulk would battle like Paul Orndorff when he was a bad guy. A lot of people wanted Hulk's title. At WrestleMania 2, Hulk would fight King Kong Bundy in Los Angeles in a steel cage, and Hulk was pretty much given bad ribs because King Kong Bundy did his what they called the avalanche in the corner, where he flings himself straight at Hogan and got him in the ribs. But logically Hogan won that steel cage match and all that because you really want King Kong Bundy as a champion. So yeah, Hogan's got a big thing about being in Canada with his Canadian outlook. I'll get to the Hulk Hogan in Canada connection because I'm a Canadian YouTuber. But the fact is that 1986 would be big for Hulk in Canada. Well, in 1987, of course, he was doing WrestleMania 3, and then Andre the Giant, who was off doing The Princess Bride and got suspended by the WWF in storyline, came back alongside Bobby the Brain Heenan, who was his heel manager. I don't think Bobby Heenan was ever a face manager. Nevertheless, he came back with Heenan, Andre did, and Andre challenged Hulk for the title. And Heenan says, "You never gave this man a chance at the title. Did you ever consider once asking Andre to face you for the belt?" And then basically Andre tore the crucifix off Hogan's neck. And Roddy Piper, when, doing Piper's Pit and basically turning himself into a good guy in a sense, helped Hogan. "You're bleeding." And Piper and Hogan had the big rivalry, but Piper just said, "Screw it. I'm going to help Hulk Hogan out." It was like, wow, such a nice guy. But the fact is that, they had that WrestleMania 3 match, which was huge, in front of 73,000 fans. I don't buy the 93,000 fans at the Silverdome. But anyway, Hulk slammed Andre. And it was like a cultural moment. Now, people will say Andre beat Hulk Hogan because Hulk went for the slam and missed, and then Andre slammed him, and then the count was supposed to go 1, 2, 3. But, that definitely wasn't the match finish. But that was amazing. Jesse the Body Ventura being a dickwad as a color commentator. But that's Jesse Ventura for you. I mean, he's okay, but Ventura didn't really give much credence to faces and all that. He's kind of like Corey Graves nowadays, or Jerry the King Lawler in his early days of WWF commentating. But the fact is that, Hulk beat Andre was huge. And then in 1988, in what they called the big event, it was a spinoff of Saturday Night's Main Event. They had this match Friday, February the 5th, I think, 1988. 33 million people watched that in the U.S. Canada had it on CHCH, but, Hulk lost to Andre by cheap tactics because the referee counted 3 on Hogan, even though Hogan's shoulder was definitely up at 2. It was some kind of dumb finish. It was a dusty finish. It was to strip Hogan of the belt that he had for 4 years. And, you got to feel bad for Hogan. Hogan had a match with Andre at WrestleMania 4 in that tournament, but it was a double disqualification. Hulk hit Andre first and got disqualified first. Andre, I don't know why he had to hit Hulk. Andre would have moved on. But, of course, Andre would have faced DiBiase, and in storyline, that would have been trouble. So, yeah, Hulk was involved in WrestleMania 4 in the main event because Miss Elizabeth, who was Macho Man's valet, got Hogan to try to counter Ted DiBiase, who was in the final against Savage, and had Andre in his corner, and Virgil too. But yeah, Hulk kind of hit on DiBiase with the chair, and Macho Man won the match. A tainted victory, as Ventura would say. Hulk then went with Randy Savage to become the Mega Powers, and it was a good pairing. But unfortunately, Hulk kind of had lust for Elizabeth. At least that's what Savage thought. And basically, Savage and Hulk would have it out in WrestleMania 5 for the belt, which Savage seemed to want to win the belt from Hogan. Well, no, he wanted to beat Hogan, but he lost. Anyway, then Hulk took time off at WrestleMania 5 to deal with the movie No Holds Barred, which kind of was a commercial flop, if you will. It brought Seuss in, but Seuss was terrible at all that. He just didn't have the rhythm. So, yeah, by WrestleMania 6, Hogan won the Royal Rumble and then would face the Ultimate Warrior in what they call the Ultimate Challenge. Hulk was the WWE champion at the time still. And it was title for title. If Hogan won, he won Warrior's Intercontinental belt as well. Of course, if Warrior beat Hogan, he would be IC champion and WWE champion at the time, of course. But, yeah, WrestleMania 6 was huge. I'll get into that later. But needless to say, Hulk in WrestleMania 7 was thrust into the main spotlight thanks to the Iraq War. WWE basically war mongling or whatever they want to call it. I mean, his match with Sergeant Slaughter was kind of clunky, I must say. I mean, like, watched it and I'm like, yeah, they just basically took the patriotism thing a little too much and made Sergeant Slaughter into an Iraqi sympathizer, which, that couldn't do it. And of course, that was supposed to be the main event at the LA Coliseum, Hogan versus Slaughter, but it had to be downgraded to the LA Sports Arena because of the lack of tickets and all that. And of course, everyone's WWE trying to pull the wool over fans' eyes by saying it was because of the whole Iraq war thing. They thought that Sergeant Slaughter was going to get shot. Yeah, right. But the fact of the matter was that, Hulk beat Sergeant Slaughter. He was getting back to WrestleMania 7. He had that SummerSlam match with Ultimate Warrior in his corner against the Triangle Terrors, Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and then Colonel Mustafa. Of course, that was the Iron Sheik. So, Hogan and Warrior won. Warrior basically got fired because he demanded too much fucking money. Sorry, I had to say that, but yeah. And then Hulk was going to leave at WrestleMania 8. They built up vignettes for him and all that. Hogan's match against Sid Justice was a clusterfuck. And then the Ultimate Warrior saved Hogan from a beating by Sid and Papa Shango. Oh, yeah. Hulk was WWE champion in 91, but lost it to The Undertaker thanks to Ric Flair's tactics at Survivor Series. Hulk did beat Undertaker back, but he used backhanded tactics. And then the WWF title was held up by President Chuck Tunney, and then whoever won the Royal Rumble in 92 would actually do it. And of course, in one of the greatest, if not the greatest Royal Rumbles ever, we saw Ric Flair go the distance from the number 3 slot to win the title. And then basically he says, with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment of my life. But my favorite Ric Flair quote from that was when he was with Mr. Perfect and Bobby the Brain Heenan and talking, and then Ric Flair says, we're not the type of guys that say we told you so, but we told you so. That's my favorite quote from the promo. But the fact of the matter is that, it was supposed to be Flair versus Hogan for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania in Indianapolis, but apparently they didn't think Flair Hogan was good because they had some house shows and it went cold, but they had cold feet, so they made Hogan versus Justice and then make Flair versus Savage for the title. But, come on. Hulk versus Rick, this was the perfect payoff, and they bailed. Hulk left to do some stuff and then came back in January 93 once Raw was in its infancy, and then decided to team up with Brutus the Barber Beefcake to try to take the tag belts from Money Inc., a.k.a. DiBiase and IRS. WrestleMania 9, Hogan and Beefcake lose the match because Hogan caused a disqualification. Idiot. And of course, everyone remembers about Hulk Hogan's eye being slugged. He had a black eye. Some say it was jet skiing. Some say Macho Man was basically punched him because of his lust for Elizabeth. Nevertheless, we thought that was the last of Hulk. If you watch WrestleMania 9, it's like, well, Hulk lost the tag belts. So is that it for him in WrestleMania at WWE? Wrongo. Later in the night, Bret Hart lost to Yokozuna for the WWE belt. It was amazing and all that to see Yokozuna win. I was a Yokozuna fan. Of course, I was pissed off when I found out Yokozuna was Samoan, not Japanese. But then again, it would be like, who the hell cares? Just say he's from Samoa. I mean, Akibodo, a legend Yokozuna or grand champion in sumo wrestling, was from Hawaii at the time. Nevertheless, Hulk bullied his way to a WWE title match against Yokozuna, beating Yokozuna in 2 minutes. In game set match, Hulk Hogan left WrestleMania 9 as the WWE champion, and that basically brought his backstage politicking to the forefront and basically made fans pissed off at him. Hogan refused to drop the belt to Bret Hart at SummerSlam, so WWE forced him to lose to Yokozuna at King of the Ring. And then, of course, Yokozuna had the belt until Bret Hart beat him at WrestleMania 10. Hogan couldn't lose to Bret Hart. It would have been a passing of the torch. It would have been a clean passing of the torch, but Hulk Hogan and his politicking, you-know-what, ruined it. And then he goes to WCW and builds WCW as a premier player and gives him some legitimacy, if you will. And then we finally got Hulk versus Ric Flair at WCW Starrcade in 1994. I think it was Bash at the Beach, excuse me, in Orlando, with Shaq being the guest referee. So basically, yeah, Hulk beat Ric Flair, and we finally got the Hogan Flair match that we all wanted. And Hulk Hogan was being a good guy, but it's his star power started to dwindle. Like, I think people kind of got tired of him being a good guy. It's kind of like Cena for the fans in the 2000s, like myself. But yeah, so Hulk decides to be in his yellow and red at Bash at the Beach 96 against the Outsiders, Nash and Hall. And basically everyone's like Dusty Rhodes was like, "Go get him, Daddy!" And Tony Schiavone says, "Yes, sir, Hulk's coming." And Bobby Heenan says, "Yeah, but whose side is he on?" Well, we know what side he's on. He leg dropped Macho Man Savage, and he was the third member. And then he kept body slamming Macho Man, and the fans were upset. They were pelting Hogan and them with garbage, like Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And basically Hulk says, "You can stick it up your butts," and yelling at the fans and all that. "This is the new world order of wrestling, brother." And man, Hulk turning heel. This was one of the biggest face to heel turns in wrestling history, akin to Cena when he became heel at Elimination Chamber in Toronto this past March. But yeah, I think that Hogan's heel turn was, I think, greater than Cena's heel turn. But yeah, he ruled WCW with an iron fist. NWO basically ruled the roost in WCW. And Hulk politicked, not a lot of times. In 2000, it was so bad that Bischoff forced Jeff Jarrett to lay down at Bash at the Beach. Or no, Vince Russo wanted, and then Hogan publicly called him out and says, "This is your type of joke, Russo?" He pins Jeff Jarrett. He wins the WCW belt, and then is not too happy with it. And then Russo comes out and shoots on Hogan legitimately, and Hogan sues him. So basically, WCW gets bought out by WWE. We don't see Hogan until No Way Out 2002 in Milwaukee. He and the NWO are coming in, and Vince says, "I'm going to inject the WWF with a lethal dose of poison." It was Hall, Nash, and Hogan giving some speeches and all that. But then all of a sudden, Hogan turned his attention on The Rock. And, Hogan was the bad guy against The Rock and all that. So, WrestleMania 18 happens in Canada and all that. And then after that, he actually beats Triple H for the WWE Undisputed Championship, which is like bullshit. Like, Triple H was the future. Hogan had no business beating the Triple H. Undertaker would take him out a month later. But, Hogan then was on again, off again. And then he came back like No Way Out 2003 in some type of match alongside The Rock, against The Rock. And basically everyone turned on him, and Vince challenged Hulk to a street fight at WrestleMania 19, which I was happy that Hulk beat Vince and basically crushed that piece of shit. And this is before, Vince's stuff nowadays. But yeah, Hulk came through with his match, did a few WWE spots till 2005, and that was it. So yeah, but to know Hulk Hogan, I'm going to end this in a nationalistic fashion, because all of a sudden it's like, what did he do for Canada? Well, Hulk Hogan had some great matches in Canada. He had 3 good matches and 1 great non-match moment in WWE. Anyway, so 1986, WWE decides to hold an event in Toronto at Exhibition Stadium, which was basically this huge stadium that had like 50,000 fans, and actually hosted Toronto Argonauts of the CFL and the Blue Jays of Major League Baseball. But they decided to do one night because in late August, Toronto has this major event called the Canadian National Exhibition, or the X as people call it nowadays. And, it had like concerts, like midway rides and all that, but they were going to have a giant wrestling event with 10 or 11 matches. I can't remember what it was. They had some great matches and all that at the X. And the main event was Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff for the WWF Championship. It was a good, interesting match, and Hulk ended up winning. I think it was a disqualification. I can't remember, but yeah, Hulk had that match in front of 55,000 people at the X. At the X, it was like one of the biggest things. Like WWE hyped this event for 1986, and then 4 years later, 1990, WrestleMania 6 lands in Toronto. I was like, wow, Canada's going to get WrestleMania after 2 straight at Trump Plaza. Don't ask me about Trump and all that. But the fact is that, yeah, they were putting it in a stadium for once. It was like, why was WrestleMania 4 and 5 in an arena where WrestleMania 3 was in a football stadium like the Pontiac Silverdome? But yeah, Toronto Skydome was going to host it. Over 68,000 fans attended it. It was a good WrestleMania. But now, what is it? I don't know what the percentage of wrestlers who wrestled at WrestleMania 6 are still alive. Like, they said WrestleMania 6 was the most cursed event in WWE history because, like, so many wrestlers have died because of steroids or accidents or practically just old age. But yeah, like Hogan versus Warrior at WrestleMania 6, it was going to blow the roof off the Skydome, the retractable roof. Ha ha. But yeah, WrestleMania 6 was okay in fact. The Hart Foundation's WWE, like their tag match with the Bolsheviks was a little too short. Demolition defeating Haku and Andre the Giant for the tag belts, and then Bobby Heenan berating Andre the Giant, and then Andre gets mad at both Haku and Bobby the Brain Heenan and becomes a good guy again, riding off in the sunset. Yeah, we know about the Piper Bad News Brown match that's now redacted because of what Piper was doing for the match. Match psychology, my ass. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, we had the Dusty Rhodes team up with Sapphire versus Macho King, Macho Man Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. And Miss Elizabeth got involved in it. But yeah, Hogan Warrior blew the roof off. And Warrior beat Hogan clean. Although some people said his shoulder was up at 2.5 for Hogan, but no, he wasn't. Because Hogan missed the leg drop and then Warrior did the splash. But Hogan basically lifted Warrior's hand up and basically called him the champion. It seemed like a good moment, but, I kind of see it, and I think a lot of wrestling fans like myself see it as just basically an ego trip by Hogan saying, I want all the attention. Warrior doesn't get the attention. I want all the fucking attention. And that's what he did. So basically what ends up happening with that is that all that. And then WrestleMania 18 in Toronto. Like Toronto got another WrestleMania in 2002. It was the first WrestleMania after the No. I was going to say the first WrestleMania after WCW was bought up by WWE. But that was actually, WrestleMania 17 actually had that. It was like a week after WCW went under. But the fact is that, 2002, you had the WCW championship and the WWE championship become the undisputed championship. Like, you still carry 2 title belts. Chris Jericho had that belt, but Triple H beat him for it and finally got in all that. A lot of people were shocked that there weren't a lot of Canadians cheering for Chris Jericho because he's from Toronto. I'm from Winnipeg, you idiot. No, I know you're from Winnipeg, Jericho. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, Hulk Hogan's a legend. His match with The Rock should have been last. I mean, yeah, it was iconic that the WWE title match would go last. But I mean, Hogan versus Rock, icon versus icon, I mean, that should have been last. But, the fans were red hot for that match. And Hogan came out in his black and white, and the fans actually didn't turn on Hulk. Hulk was supposed to be the bad guy, but the fans were cheering Hulk like he was a good guy. And Hulk looked perplexed, just like The Rock in their opening stare-off before the match. And then, of course, the next night was Raw in Montreal, the same Raw that's Brock Lesnar debut, and Paul Heyman coming back to the WWE, ponytail and all. But yeah, the Raw in Montreal, I think SmackDown was also in Montreal. But yeah, Hulk Hogan got a massive standing ovation. He couldn't talk for like 3 minutes. It was like amazing that the fans cheered on Hogan, and Hogan went back to the red and yellow of the old days instead of the NWO black and white. So that was huge. So anyway, that's all I got to talk about Hulk Hogan being dead and all that. Kind of shocking. I got to do a few tributes to him through N64 emulation and my wrestling PC game. And then Saturday will be probably something to do with WWE 2K24 because Hulk Hogan is not unlockable unless you, of course, buy an accelerator. But I have to go through the superstar mode, the 40 years mode, and get all the Hulk Hogan's I can get. I think, well, of course, I'll go up to WrestleMania 18 and all that, but I'll have to try. I have to try. So anyway, thanks for watching. And, well, before I go, basically, as Hulk Hogan famously said, I want the kids who are idolizing me, yeah, right, like there's kids idolizing me, people idolizing me, to eat your vitamins, say your prayers, drink your milk, and always remember what you're gonna do when these 5-inch pythons come storming on you. Come storming on you. Obviously, I did a shit job cutting my shirt. Fuck. The essence of live TV. Don't worry, it's a junk shirt because I play more shirts. Feel the power. You really think I was going to tear up my shirt and show my torso on YouTube? You're dreaming. You're dreaming. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Ado.